Hello and welcome to Starcode Starcast, where we talk about the astrology of the month ahead and interview some interesting people with an astrological context. This first 15 minutes will be about the month of October 2025. It is September 24th at the moment. And it is a wild time, and we all know that there are many planets changing signs this year. We are in in the transformer beam between an old way of being. We're in a kind of tense and possibility ridden time, but how do we steer this boat into the better world we know is possible? Now, it's a really interesting chart. I'm going to talk about the chart of, no, that's a little bit farther along. I want to do that too. We've got some very interesting transits this week. So here is the grand trine that of this week. This week at the end of September, beginning of October, the sun, first it was Mercury, now it's the sun, form a grand trine with Uranus in Gemini and Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius. So any planet you have that's between between 0 and 3 degrees is being repeatedly triggered by all the planets that change signs this year. Uranus and Pluto are now at 1 degrees. Neptune is at 0 Aries, and they will retrograde back out of those signs, but stay in that configuration basically. And then next spring, move back into that pattern. 6 times Pluto and Uranus hit that exact trine. So that it's a interesting repeating pattern. Now they first came together. When those two planets come together, we have like a new moon of a transformational time. Pluto and Uranus are the planets we associate most with transformation and change. And this cycle began in 1965 when Uranus and Pluto conjunct. When any two planets conjunct, it's like a new moon. It begins a new cycle. And that they happened in 1850, in 1710, and in 1597. It's a long cycle. They squared again in 2012, just as Obama was coming into power, and we could feel all this shift and change, and a lot of change in a short period of time. They gave us a hint of the potential. Now it's moved back into a trine, and like it was in 1884 and 1773, right before the American Revolution. I'll show you an interesting aspect from that. What's interesting also about this is they form a grand trine, and they will continuously during this time, because these planets all have low cycles. Pluto's 248 years, Uranus is 84, Neptune's 165 roughly. And at 0 degrees of Aries, it's like you've got two big horses galloping ahead, and Neptune has the reins. And Neptune has a sextile to both of them. Now, what was interesting when I go back and look at this is the chart of a few days ago when Venus was square that, and this chart has been called the Millennium Falcon because you've got the Grand Trine, you've got it bisected here, and they both sextile there with two squares that come off as if it's going someplace, but where is the question. We look back at the same planets involved. This is in what we call minor grand trine with two planets trine and both sextile. And the same planets were involved in a major grand trine in the spring of 1774 as the efforts to start our government here really began to pick up speed. So we're coming back to that original place, that original vision, that desire to have a healthy country from here. We come back to this grand trine. So for the next 2 years, Neptune holds the reins. Now, if we don't use positive Neptune, negative Neptune will naturally step in and be the problem. I saw an interesting report from a woman in Philippines who studies the effects of media. Really interesting book and a really interesting story about the toxic effect of public media, how it's being used and farmed out and cycled to just be um, uh, propaganda. And we've seen that in response to that, those propaganda farms, which you see the huge banks of phones worked up to all of these systems, that it's really, and the new AI with fake voices, fake films, that the illusions in this world are thick. And it's very hard to see through them right now. We'll take all of our perspicacity. So be perspicacious and encourage people to keep that question, because negative Neptune is illusion, delusion, escapism, addiction, things that flow like fossil fuels, all alcoholism, all that, but mainly creating that illusion and sense of passivity, that you're stuck, that you're a martyr, you can't do anything. Positive Neptune, spirituality, imagination, vision, taking us places. We need to vote with where we want to go with our imagination, and then back it up with real work. Prayers with action. And to but constantly be working to pierce through that Neptunian fog, which is on a bad day driving the changes off the cliff. And in a good day, people with vision, people that care, people that are working towards this, um, can take it forward. Now, Saturn is going to retrograde back to 5 degrees. It was within less than a degree of conjunct Neptune earlier this summer, or just a little while ago. It's going to retrograde back and hit this conjunction again, and that can be helpful. I am hoping it's a certain Weltschmerz, a certain world weariness and existential angst which calls us, but it's going to help us put it can be the worst of the regulations that are not working, the authoritarian issues, but it can also, on a good day, Saturn speaks of the rule of law. How can we use the rule of law? How can we use critical thinking to pierce through and get steered Neptune into its positive form? Now, there's going to be a lot up about that this week as Neptune forms that grand trine and that the sun sets off that grand trine and directly opposes that Neptune. And I think that the speeches at the beginning of the UN session are a perfect example. The the head of the UN spoke beautifully about the Portuguese man, about the vision of why the UN and where the UN was going and what it can give to the world and how we need to work together. And then a little while later, our president, or the president, spoke and told lies about what's going on in the country. I think it's more illusions and delusions. I think he really believes that, which is what can make it so effective, because his chart with that moon in Sagittarius wants to speak the truth, but speaks the truth as he sees it. So the distortion has to come in how they perceive it, not an attempt to lie, but just, this is how it is. My vision is it. I'm not going to look any farther. Here it is. So it's been an interesting process. We ask you to keep your critical thinking intact. So we're going to move on to look at uh, October 6th. And October 6th, Mercury heads into Scorpio. So right now, Venus is in Virgo and Mars is in Scorpio. I want you to be a little careful in all relationships right now, because that Venus in Virgo can be very compassionate and caring. It can help you kind of work together to heal your life or work on projects or kind of really come to understand each other through analysis. Or it can make you a little difficult and finding everything wrong to keep the world at a bit of a bay. If you find yourself being extra critical under stress, look at this, how to soften that stress rather than believe that critical rant. You save that for where it really matters. Don't pick at each other. So that Venus and Virgo can be deeply compassionate and caring, and shares by understanding and analyzing together. That Mars in Scorpio can go deep. It can be nice and sexy and juicy, Mars in Scorpio, or it can say that there is those deep underground currents that if we're not acknowledging can run underneath us and cause problems. So when I'm like, be aware of the difference between what people say and what they're doing, and trust that what they're doing is speaking for some part of them that may not be conscious. So we want them to work together. On a good day, those aspects that Venus and Mars are in good shape, it can help deepen relationships. May not be a time we want to get to know lots of new people, but it is a wonderful time to take our good relationships deeper. But that Mars in Scorpio can be very can be can revenge oriented. And just kind of quick look at the American chart, which is involved here. And we have Trump's planets and Vance's planets on the outside. Now, this is a really interesting study, and I won't go into too much detail, but Vance's Uranus is on our ascendant, Trump's Uranus is on our descendant, and that's a stirring up the pot, changing things, bringing what could be seen as chaos. Some people might see as radically good. I see it as chaotic and problematic. But that is, but we see that Vance has Mars in Scorpio, and at the moment, Trump has progressed moon in Scorpio. So there's a lot of, we question that Scorpio element can be powerful when conscious, but can be a real issue when people are not aware of where they're going with it. I want to take it now to October 20th. And on October 20th, uh, we see a Mercury Mars conjunct in Scorpio, and we might find, and it's forming a grand trine with Jupiter and Saturn, that there is a chance again in our personal life to research, to go deeper, to take this places. But I would watch what is said and what is done in the big picture. We often feel these aspects very differently in our personal life and in the big political life. Coming back to today's chart, September 24th, the other aspect besides the Grand Trine that we're feeling this week so intensely is Pluto square Mars. Mars has just gone into Scorpio. It's going to be in Scorpio for the next 2 months. And it in that square to Pluto, look for people's real motivations can become visible during this aspect. It can be a deep aspect. It can help us understand what we're doing. It can give us the oomph to get at problems we have not gotten at, or it can be really explosive. And it's not an explosive signs, it's implosive, but kind of look for those dark edges. If you have friends that are facing very difficult times right now, they can feel distraught because that Scorpio can get like take them down deep, and it can take you down deep to do the good work, or it can take you down deep to make you wrestle with your depression. So check in on them, support them through this process, and avoid really dangerous places. On October 22nd, we went through October 30th, we see that Mars is still in Scorpio, Mercury is in Scorpio, Venus will have moved into Libra by then. We saw that that was when Venus moved in October 13th. And that will soften some of the edges, soften some of our prickliness. Mars will be in that grand trine with Jupiter and Saturn, and Pluto is turning direct after being retrograde for a long time. Now, when a planet turns direct after being retrograde, often we see the results of what people have been brooding upon, and we want that to come out so that we can see what's going on. But I would keep your eye on safety first, with Mercury, the Moon, and Mars all in Scorpio on October 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Just as the sun goes into Scorpio. I mean, the delightfulness of that Scorpio season, there's a reason why Halloween is there. It is time to face our fears before we head into winter. It is time to really look into, kind of make sure that we've got dealt with the real tough issues of our life before we head into winter, and to befriend our spirits of that have departed. But it can also, it can people play hardball when the planets line up in Scorpio. They play it for real, and it can be for real good. Some of the most profoundly wonderful people I know have Scorpio lineups, and it can be Machiavellian. So just keep an eye on it, check your own motivation. When someone says something to you that feels way off base, ask, why are they saying that? Look for motivation during that time and to help us steer this boat into safety. Use that Venus in Libra towards the end of the month to connect with people in a good way that can give you social context to do the deeper work together. And we look forward to this and to this exciting month ahead. I'll see you at the end of next month in September, where I'm going to be talking to Lisa Stardust, who does columns for, Vogue and Time and Today Show and a few other. She's an astrologer with a kind of pop edge that can really take us places or tell us what's going on in that world. But this today, I'm going to bring on my old friend and take this one off today's chart and say that where is it? Remove. There you are, Silver Wainhouse. I've known Silver for decades. We used to be part.
Really,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We used to be part of one of the most juiciest astrological communities there ever was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, back a couple of decades ago. And we had really wonderful astrological conversations, workshops, meetings, talks with so many pro astrologers. It was delightful to be part of that with you, Silver.
Absolutely. We had the best astrologers and
Hmm.
we did the best presentations.
We did. Wasn't it
Alan
fabulous?
Oken, Edith Hathaway, Ariel Goodman, Marcia Stark,
Yes. Marilyn
just to
LeBlanc.
name a
Yeah, we
few.
had a lot.
Robert
Yeah, that's just
Hand,
to name a few. Right.
Robert
Robert Hand came
Hand,
through.
come
Yeah, he
on.
came through. Yeah, we had some good ones. And
We
it was
did.
and it was so wonderful to see that collaborative approach. And I ask all of us in these fields, instead of competitive, which can happen, collaboration and sharing ideas, make more room for the field. Educate, open the eyes and hearts of people rather than compete over small audiences. What's it like over there? You're living in France these days.
I'm in France. I've been
I,
here for many years.
hmm And
Uh, when I was in Santa Fe, I was back and forth in three places actually: Santa Fe, the Midwest, and here. I'm in
yeah,
Uzès, France,
yeah, and
and it's
Santa
9 o'clock
Fe.
at night.
Well, thank you for joining us. I know I've
Well,
had.
no, but we're daytime. I'd show you the view from the terrace.
Well, that's wonderful. How is the astrological community for you over there? Is there?
It it is not great. I'm in a small town,
Hmm.
but one of the things I do is I keep in touch with
Hmm.
people such
Hmm.
as yourself.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I bring people here.
And you've been doing a lot of work around writing and and using writing as a way of bringing people together. And it's been interesting as an astrologer. It must be to see how do you bring people together and in this time. And tell me a little bit about the work you're doing writing.
Well, mostly what I'm doing is I'm supporting other people in their writing processes
Hmm.
and have wonderful writers. One writer I'm working with now is Tinge, and he is writing about exactly what we're talking about, and
Tell me
that
about
is the evolution of the United States.
it. Hmm.
He's written for some of the biggest publications. He's traveled extensively, lived all over,
Hmm.
and he has considerable knowledge of Virgo,
Hmm.
considerable knowledge about his subject. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And so he's showing uh, what happened then, how it is carried, nurtured, and evolved to position that we're in right now. The United States as a
Mhm,
country and the
mhm.
United States as how it is positioned in the world with incredible detail
I bet.
about,
I'd love to see that and work
yes,
through the astrological patterns that I've been watching, with that because we're a country such a country of flow and creation. How are the politics in France compared to America right now? Or what's going on? How do you feel the pulse of it in France? We can read the headlines.
yes, everybody is around the world. And I talk to people all over Europe and I travel, and people are just talking about the Neptune. It's like this cloud, what has happened? People stopped me on the street. The United States was the leader. I mean, these people here celebrated Obama. And
Yeah.
now they're asking me, what is going on? What are you doing? How about your family in the States? Are you going to go back? What should we do? And everybody's looking to us because we have positioned ourselves and we are the leader in a very
Sure.
strong sense of the economy and the world.
Right.
And
We
when we
were.
exhibit the chaos that we are,
Mhm.
other people feel it. It's, it's throughout.
I've been watching this since the our progressed lunar new moon as a country, and that was a while ago. But it in the process of going through that. Let me see if I can pull up the United States tri-wheel. So the moon, our progressed moon, is in Aries now. It went into Aries, and everybody got so much more militant in this country and more simplistic about the thinking. But it was about 23 months ago that the progressed moon, we had a progressed lunar new moon in Pisces at the very bottom of our chart. And that struck me as a nadir. Like we were moving farther and farther from being the leader that we are in the world and more into a and Neptune and Saturn had been opposed, all lots of stuff had been going on, but that progressed lunar new moon, the progressed new moons begin a 30-year cycle,
Mhm,
and it has the flavor of the sign and the season and the house. And that progressed new moon in Pisces kind of is a step back from our power and into a more passive and kind of strange place, and in the third house that we wanted to keep it to local neighborhood. And now our progressed moon is coming back up. It's going to take, another 15 years. It'll be up here again, and we may be out there in leadership. But it may be for the world's benefit that we've stepped off the leadership stage, but we definitely have. And every decision I see about, America first is ending up making us a backwater and stepping away from engagement in the world and not into our power, but out of our power, which is too bad.
yes. And that Pisces energy is the energy that's the glue that we see that holds us all together.
Yeah.
How do we relate to each other? We are one.
Hmm.
And
And
the
I,
Aryan energy is it's courageous, like Aries.
mhm.
Aries is the sign that for me symbolizes that blade of grass that comes through the concrete. I'm coming through no matter what. And even with the renaming of certain government departments, making them more martial-like, that reflects.
I know. Trump's Uranus is right on the America's moon in the seventh house in Gemini. So he kind of like wants to stir that kind of simple Mars energy up, I think. And he's certainly electrifying it, energizing it. That Aries, this coming spring, that Saturn and Neptune will conjunct our IC, kind of asking us to kind of come back to what's our philosophical grounding? What is our taproot? Because the bottom of the chart, when if America could have stood when it was born, which it couldn't because it wasn't a person, but if it could and dropped, and we use the mythic American chart because it seems to work so well for the transits.
Mhm.
and dropped a tap line through it, right out the other side. That's like our taproot, our foundations, our spine extended into the earth.
Exactly.
And so Saturn and Neptune are going over that spine, asking us to can really look at the philosophy, the spirituality, and the mess that in and the illusion that's in our taproot, and really kind of look at our philosophical approach to the world.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm
Saturn, yeah. With
mhm,
Saturn being, what's the structure?
right. How do we
What
build
are
that
we built
structure?
on?
Right.
And
I
Neptune
think.
would be what is nourishing that structure? What is the
Mhm,
spirit?
mhm, mhm. And on a good day, Saturn can be the rule of law, and so we can
Hmm.
see that Saturn, Neptune, they always planets aspects always kind of affect each other. There's so many different ways we can live out those symbols. So Saturn can be, a Neptune can dissolve our rules of law, which is what's been
Hmm.
experiencing, or we can add the rule of law back to our original vision, like, and give some muscle to the Constitution, which is what I'm hoping that Saturn Neptune does when it hits the IC.
Right. And Saturn is the master.
Hmm.
Saturn says,
Hmm.
I am Chronos. I have the experience. I have the wisdom. Now, the question is, how do I use this?
Right.
Do I use it to
Beautiful.
be manipulative? Do I use it to be cooperative?
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I think all of this, with Pluto in Aquarius, where it was when America was first forming itself. It was in Capricorn when we declared ourselves independent, but when we were forming ourselves as
Hmm.
as a country and writing our constitution, Saturn Pluto was in Aquarius. It was a we the people, and they meant the biggest picture. Whatever their local version of it was, they put in place this vision statement, this Aquarian, how do we work together? If we succeed, we're going to succeed together. And how do we live that out? And I think, we've been going through it since Pluto, we had that exact Pluto conjunction on January 6th when Trump caused such a mess. Um, but we since then, we keeps coming back to how do we redefine we the people? How do we come back to that original, and that's going to be there for decades. So
Hmm.
what is the good side of the power of the people? What can be the bad side when you have um, a, a a voting population that's been listening to memes farmed in from you know uh, propaganda machines? What does how, do they Are they thinking clearly? How do we bring back the idea of thinking independently, thinking clearly, thinking about the consequences of our actions in the future? And that's one of the hopes I have for the Pluto and Aquarius generation.
And, yeah, and I think Pluto and Aquarius with Venus being the personal, what I
Mhm.
have,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
Pluto in Scorpio
Mhm.
being in the eighth house. I mean,
Mhm.
Pluto just as a planet being
Mhm.
what we have together. With Pluto in Aquarius, what we have together for the collective good.
Right. Right. I think if that can be how we work it, um, that would be powerful. That would be powerful. So Venus goes into Libra, the one chart I didn't look at, and
Mhm.
when any planet changes signs, it's going to hit off that Pluto and Neptune. So we're going to see a grand trine with Venus, just as you were saying, in its own sign of Libra on
Mhm.
October 13th, and it's going to be opposed Neptune. Now, Venus opposed Neptune is a great time to write short stories or screenplays. It may be a hard time to kind of know what your beloveds think. You may think you have to really watch emotional assumptions with Venus opposed Neptune. We can idealize things or imagine them far worse than they are. The question is ask, talk to each other. Don't drop all assumptions. But how do you see that? It can be a pretty hopeful grand trine with
It,
Venus
it,
in there.
it can be. And I look at Venus as Neptune as the higher octave of Venus, the highest expression of Venus.
Hmm.
So
That's
it's
beautiful.
it's like
Hmm.
baby Venus looking over here at Big Mama Venus.
Mhm. That's lovely. And if we can pull that in and think of it as, it's a way asking us to listen, that quiet listening to divine love. Now, that's been a little tricky this fall or this year. The sun, I noticed, I've been watching the sunspot cycles for generations. And
Mhm.
when the sun is very active, it's hard for us to see what's going on in the far reaches of the universe. It's hard for us to hear what's going on in the far reaches of the universe. There's a lot of action that holds our, like, literally, that telescopes don't look, the sounding things go out because there's so much happening here, and we have a beautiful aurora borealis, and the volume turns up on history. So when you look back at times of peak sunspots like the American Revolution, the mid 60s, and now we see just, it's like jumping beans. It's like they're very active. Now, people that are born during a high sunspot cycle, and you can find that if you look, but it's tricky. Look for sunspot cycles. It's roughly an every 11-year cycle, but it can slide all over the place. So astrologers can get frustrated with it. But it's the volume control and all the other aspects. And when the sun is active, we see, trees grow faster and things happen faster and politics happens with more extreme swings. But it's hard to see out in the universe. But politicians that are born then are often very canny at noticing how to move the pieces. People that are born, many astrologers are born when the sun was quiet, and we're able to see the faraway places. Now, people born then aren't always the best political, uh, movers and shakers because they're thinking philosophically or spiritually, or it could be religiously, depending upon their version of it. But they're kind of feeling the bigger picture, but may not always see what has to happen right here. And right now we're in a very active right here, not asking the big, less likely to ask the big philosophical questions like, where does this take my soul? Where do I go with this? And how does this move the soul of the earth forward? How does this protect this precious earth of ours, the Gaia, the earth mother herself?
And Heather, do you think that with the increased activity of sunspots, that, as above, so below, that people feel that inside?
I think so. I've noticed that when their sunspots hit, if you go to spaceweather.com, you can see the sunspot activity of the day, and it was very quiet under the last Trump administration. It's hard to get changes happening one way or the other.
Mhm.
When pro or con, or anyway, when the sunspots go, was very active. Right now, it was starting to get active just as Obama came into office. It got quiet again. It didn't hit a high that they thought it was going to hit, so the changes kind of went, uh, um, but they were exciting. They just didn't go as far as we'd hoped. Now it's kind of off the charts, and that people get, quite literally, that day that the solar flares hit us, it can affect, gives us great northern lights. It can screw up our radio signals, and I
Mhm.
find people get tired. They just get like, there's an exhaustion level, that as if we're dealing with a lot of ions going through us. That's my theory, but I don't know what the actuality is. I find that situations get more volatile, but people tend to get more tired, and then they recover, and then they go to other things. But just kind of notice that if you're feeling particularly tired and you don't know why, go check the weather, the space weather, and realize I just may need a little extra energy and rest because we're dealing with a lot of big cosmic rays. Now, we can, I think, use those cosmic rays for good, but we just to be aware that they're there. And that's strange, though. It's
Mhm.
there.
I encourage people during times like that and feelings like that to go to their 12th house, to the ruler of their 12th house, because, and to give a creative expression to those energies. I see the 12th house as feeding the creative energy. a place where you go in order to repose, as we say, to reestablish yourself, to connect with the one.
Mhm.
And the expression of that energy is what the fifth house shows.
Beautiful. And I'm going to go back to here. And if when people are looking at it, to remember when you're looking at your chart, this is, and you can go to astro.com and get a copy of it. This is where the horizon of the Earth was. And the 12th house are the planets that have just come up over the eastern horizon. So that's where the sun is the first 2 hours after sunrise. And it's a deeply interior and personal time.
Mhm.
It's the deep work, right? And how do you see the 12th house? I've got just four planets and an asteroid or two in the 12th, and the ruler of the 12th in the 12th. But it's how do you perceive? Tell us more about that because I like your perception of the 12th.
I think the 12th house is where we go when nobody's home, nobody's with us, and we are alone with ourselves, with our thoughts, and we are searching to know what we're connected to.
It's beautiful.
Whatever you believe,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, Allah, Buddha, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whoever you feel has given you this force and given you this body, and going there and actually giving gratitude for it, asking for the best expression of what you are meant to do and what you are here for, and
Mm,
expressing it, in any number of ways. I think that for me, I go back to Mark Edmund Jones for the vocational indicators, Mercury, Mars, whatever. Mine is happens to be writing, and
mhm.
and um, and using that.
Tell us
But
more about that. I'd love to take the next segue after you finish that thought is where do you see writing in the chart? Because you've been looking at writers' charts, you've been looking at writing in your own chart. I'd love to hear more about that.
I look at Mercury in the fifth. I also look at it as close to the sun,
Mhm, mhm.
which is always never far away.
Yeah, it's
But
always one the same sign or one
yeah,
before or one after.
yes, exactly. And but more than that, the first thing I'd look at is always I'd look at the sun.
Mhm,
I'd look at it, because I see the sun as I look at three things. I go old school. The
mhm,
sun is your energy, your main energy, what you are here to be. You are Virgo. You are here to serve. You will do the dirty stuff that nobody else will do and see the holiness and sacredness in it.
that's
You're
beautiful.
also the person, as a
Mhm.
Virgo, that has innumerable details in your head that some people say, my God, we don't need to know all that. But you're the person that people
Very
go
true.
to when they
Mhm,
need to know.
mhm, mhm.
You're detailed.
That's good. And I take those details. I have the ruler of my Mercury. I have a Mercury sun, Mercury rising, a Virgo rising, Virgo sun, and Gemini midheaven. And the ruler is Mercury in Libra in the first house. So Venus and Mercury are in each other's signs, mutual reception. So I lead with the Mercury. People ask me, do you like writing? I go, no, I like
Mhm.
having written.
Mhm.
I the process of writing can be excruciating because I don't think I'm an astrologer who writes, not a writer who's an astrologer.
Uh-huh.
And so it's kind of learning to use that to the get trust the flow rather than edit as I go. I think the Virgo can edit has to ask our inner editor to sit next to us, not sit between us and the writing, but sit
Mhm.
next to us. We won't let it out of the house until our editor has read it. But we can't edit each sentence as you go, or you can't get anywhere.
Each word.
Yeah, gotta. It's like you had. Thank you for sharing. Sit over here. Now we'll talk. And I
Yep.
think that's all of our strengths can become over muscular and get in our way. I love that expression I heard one that your genius is found in your bad habits. And I would say, and
Mm-hmm.
your bad habits are found in your genius. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that on if you can the very part of your chart that can be such a gift, or the very part of the chart that can be the gift of the moment, can be such a problem when we're trying to put it together if we don't direct it well. Like this urge for change right now is so strong, and I think one of the things that's happening in America is this urge for change. Well, once you let go of old rules, anything can happen. If we don't hold on to the Constitution, they could rewrite the whole rules. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, this change could be chaotic rather than rebuilding. So their change, once you step out of the walls, you have to be careful, and you have to kind of figure out where you're going and guide that well. But I think that that's part of the potential of this moment, is that there's so much room for change. The scary thing about this moment is there's so much room for change. So much has
Exactly.
changed from between the Obama administration and here. So much has changed, and how do we keep feeling that the clutch is still in? Uranus is the cosmic clutch. The clutch is still in for the next couple of years. Everything is shifting gears. We have to stay in there to be part of how we steer those changes. We come back to that Neptune.
Right. And going
Yeah.
to the change, we
Mhm.
go to the question, talking about the sun, who we are, what we're
Mhm.
trying to be. We're saying, well, who are we? What is America? Who
Right.
represents America? Who are we?
Right.
So for me, the
And our
sun
Mhm.
is who you are. It's your
Mhm.
major energy.
Mhm.
The moon is represents your insecurities, your vulnerabilities, and your perspective. Your ascendant is the glasses that you look through.
That's beautiful.
And I do Da Vinci's Man.
Mhm.
Me, you, us, them.
That's lovely. That's
So
lovely.
and who you are. The planets determine how easily it is for you to express who you are, how easily you express your Virgo side, your Taurus side.
So that brings me back to another question. How did you get into astrology? That's always interesting to people.
I got into astrology. My God, I was a young girl,
Mhm.
very young. And my aunt, my father's sister, told
Mhm.
me, "You're just like your great grandmother." She knew all that and she studied herbs and she was a midwife. So
Mm.
I know it's in my blood.
Right.
I
The
also
soul healers. Mhm.
for a while I studied with a guy in St. Louis, Pang, who was African American and Chinese, and his golden life was to be a wise man, and he would literally talk to people all over the United States just on the phone who called to talk to him. And I would go see him periodically. We would talk about charts, and I learned from him, and then I outgrew him, and
Mhm. Mhm.
and was in the association and lectured in St. Louis. I was
Wonderful.
astrologist for Borders Books as a lecturer,
Fabulous. Yep.
and they would hire me as an alternative to the Super Bowl.
Oh, that is just perfect. Yes.
And
Uh-huh.
but I really have did not find a community like Santa Fe
Mhm.
anywhere,
Right.
nor since.
Yeah, I agree. I work to recreate some of the juiciness of it, and I found some great astrologers in New York to work with, but it took a while, and I
Mhm.
have my wonderful, Anne Ortley and Mark Waltz that I do regular as access astrology talks with. But it took it took forever to find people that wanted to work together collaboratively for the
Mhm.
public rather than just for astrologers, no, but to really make it available to people, to make real solid astrology actually available. And that's
Yeah.
been our work since.
And
But
I
it
work best in collaboration, as
Yeah.
probably do you. I do.
Yeah.
and I know that. And
Mhm.
I so I look for partners who I can work alongside.
Yeah, and
And
you doing some great work with writers in
oh my
France
gosh,
with that.
yes, I have had
Mhm.
the most amazing people, the most
That's
amazing people, and I'm really grateful for that.
mhm.
And I think I've got Mercury conjunct Uranus. I don't know if you looked at
Mhm.
my chart.
Yeah, I did. Let me pull it up.
Yeah,
So I've got it right
directly
there.
1 degree smack together.
That's so wonderful. And how do you, again, because we're all dealing with that Uranian energy this week, how do you feel about um, looking at your chart? Yes, you have it exactly conjunct 1 degree to 1 degree. So
Hmm.
right now, Saturn and Neptune have been talking to your Mercury and Uranus, and this year. So that's kind of heavy, but it's
Hmm.
also helping you put discipline into your writing because that's a beautiful combination. I would say that I have Mercury Uranus sextile.
Hmm.
That and I also started early, like you did, is sort of a remembering from other lifetimes. That this isn't the first lifetime we've been an astrologer. When it
No.
was the Chaldeans, that we're just remembering it. It just takes a
Yes.
while to bring it back up and to get the discipline down and to get the details in. But it is that Mercury, that being able to think outside of the box,
Hmm.
being able to think in more dimensions, that can make the astrologer's so eccentric as well.
Exactly. And I see things. Sometimes I see things been described as a download.
Mhm, mhm.
I actually, my late husband, Austrian, I saw him about a year before I ever met him. I saw his face and I said, okay, this person is coming and I know they're going to be important. And I literally walked into a room and I saw him sitting lecturing. And I said, this is the person that I saw.
Isn't that bizarre? I
It
s
was
Ren
really bizarre. And I'm
Ren and
writing
I
about
had a
that.
similar thing about that. Now, your husband was an amazing person with an amazing.
Amazing.
So can you and we have another 10 minutes, and you mentioned that it was he's gone, but it was your anniversary, and he's quite a character. So
Quite a
where
character.
tell me how a little bit about him and what you saw in his chart that, as because he obviously yours 2 souls were so clearly connected when I met you 2.
Yes. And I didn't want that to happen. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. But I knew when I saw him that I was meant to be with him.
Mhm, mhm.
Incredibly. Austrian came
He
to
seemed to
France
know it
because
right
of
away too.
Einstein. Albert
Mhm,
Einstein was a friend of his family. His father was
mhm.
assistant deputy secretary of state. And he came, but Austrian was a rebel, being Aquarius that he was.
And he was an Aquarius moon
If-
in
Aquarius, Moon and Pisces.
oh, that seems
Yeah,
rising sign?
Aquarius.
Aquarius. What
And
was happening with his Mercury? Because he
he,
was brilliant and had the best library I've ever seen.
and he was a genius. He
Mhm.
really literally he was a genius. He translated the complete works of the Marquis de Sade after having high school French
Amazing. Mhm.
and translated for Simone de Beauvoir. He was at the Salk Institute with Joe de Salk and Jacques Monod. Was at the Salk Institute and Austrian won the Nobel Prize. Jacques Monod did, and Austrian won a prize for the translation of his works to bring it before
Amazing.
the collective. Just that's just some of the stuff.
And I think
But
that it's part of the Piscean gift is they can understand other people's realities. That moon in
mhm,
Pisces often acts as a translator in the family or a translator for other people. Like, let me help you understand. I can get into their mindset, and so I can help you understand it, which is one reason why they sometimes need a lot of personal space.
yes,
But he
yes,
must have, the 2 of you had such strong kind of psychic connection, and even though you came from such different parts of the world, it was
totally
beautiful.
different.
And
Totally
I think
different.
that's what was make it so healthy, so strong.
Exactly. And he was open, and I told him, I said, you went to that, you went to Harvard, you graduated from Harvard, now you're going to go to my school. And I said, people saw that you're one of the few people who knew us both,
Yes.
you know, and because people would look at him, this guy, New England accent, blah blah blah, very traditional looking, and me with my locks down almost to my waist, it's like,
Uh-huh.
how is this happening? But it did,
Oh,
and it
he was
happened over
fascinated
books.
by you. He knew that were like you were everything that was missing in his life, is what it felt
Yep,
like. Yep, it was
and
really
and
beautiful.
and yeah, absolutely. But gosh, one of the things I wanted to talk about briefly,
Yes,
and this is totally off the subject,
go for it.
is the eclipse.
Tell me about it. Yes,
Okay,
that was a
and
really interesting eclipse. I'm gonna pull it
okay,
up.
and what I wanted to talk about was because I always go to Dane Rudyard. Okay, that's my guy,
Yep.
and I'm looking at this 29 degrees of Virgo. Okay,
Mhm.
and I went to the mandala, of course. And so that takes it to 30 degrees. And it is so interesting, which is anaretic degree, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And being in Virgo, that takes us, let's see, the stage one, the first three signs are individualization, differentiation. Who am I from everybody else? And then we go to stabilizing what we are. And this is the last of stabilization. Okay, before we go to the group
This was
integration.
just last weekend, September 21st, right
Yep.
before the equinox. I'm just kind of helping people know. And when you hit an eclipse like this, which we've just had, you will feel it for at least a month. You are
Yes.
in that
At
zone
least.
until the next new moon. So
And
yes,
listen to what Dane Rudyard says. 30
okay.
degrees of Virgo. Total intent upon completing an immediate task. A man is deaf to any allurement. The total concentration required for reaching any spiritual goal. The last message of the hemicycle of individualization is that on all decisive occasions, what must be done has to be done so intently that no outer voices can penetrate the mind, still less the soul.
That's powerful.
Is that somebody not listening?
Yeah. Yeah. Or any of us that are focusing on a goal and not listening to the extra what else is going on. Which
Yep.
worked for me when we had to move a huge pile, a burn pile that we never burnt, that was in the way, that was 7 years of collected wood, which was the most exhausting day I've spent in a long time. But that's what we did with that eclipse. But that energy is going to resonate. But we see that focus, what it looks like in a president, what it looks like uh, in. I know most people I know spent Saturday, Sunday just dealing with piles,
Mhm.
going through the piles of their life. And how do we, clearing piles, clearing stuff, clearing the body, whatever they needed to clear. But
You
it
just
is that.
segued into something.
Go ahead.
you just, you just segued into Mars, which is also in an anaretic degree. It's
Yeah.
three mounds, three piles of knowledge on the philosopher's head.
Oh, wow. Perfect.
The fulfillment of man's power of understanding at whatever level of existence the person operates. How about
That's
that?
beautiful.
You
That's
just
beautiful.
you just put that in physical form. You acted that out.
Yeah, it's great. That's great.
You did
Uh-huh.
our old astro drama.
I did our astro drama. Yes. We used to in our community of astrological community on new getting ready for the new years. The astrologers we would speak to a couple hundred people because in Santa Fe you have an informed audience, and we would act out the chart. Everybody would take a planet. and
Mhm.
act out the chart of New Year's Day. And we would talk to each other, and some of it would be hysterically funny, some would be painful. Sometimes, you'd find that the two actors that were playing planets that were squared started arguing with each other and took a year to get along again. I mean, sometimes we embodied it too much, but it was really wonderful to see the charts come alive. And it's if you ever get a chance, anybody out there, to do that with your own chart, bring people together and act out your chart. You learn so much from the interactions. But you were talking about that at this eclipse, and the analytic degree is the very last degree, right as the change is happening. I think of it like the transporter beam degree, um, where
Everything. All
everything
of
is.
that sign, all
Mhm.
the essence, every degree, all of that sign, getting ready to go on to the next. All of it. All of what it means, all of what it can express, all of what it can do.
And so it's often a very kind of critical events happen at the turning points.
Absolutely. And talking about critical degrees and turning points and everything, I know just from people who talk to me that there's a lot of fear.
Hmm.
There's a lot of fear.
That
And
negative Neptune, the fear.
yeah, yep. I just want to remind people that you can be fearful and still take a step.
Mhm.
Okay? And that there are Neptune also is the ideal collective. People
Mm.
that you may not see who know what you're feeling and are feeling the same thing. And I encourage people to reach out,
Beautiful.
to see who, reach out online to a group, talk to people,
Build
talk
that
about,
collective. Build a good collective.
build a good collective. And
There's
we
a
talked about,
power
yeah,
that Pluto and Aquarius, the power is in the group.
yeah. And this caused me to, we talked about words before. My new group that I'm forming here in Uzes is shaping words.
Oh, beautiful.
And with shaping words, it is creatives and how a word can be expressed in various forms. One person can take the word joy and write a book. Somebody else can paint a picture that's joyful. Someone else could do pottery. It's how a word can be expressed in various forms.
That'll be juicy.
It is juicy.
And that's, again, that's a good use of the Saturn Neptune. Let's give it a form and a structure to connect, not restrict it, but to give our dreams and our vision and our imagination form and power.
Mhm.
So I think that's beautiful.
And
And
also, yeah, also people, for- when I started to study the chart for me was the biggest gift because it enabled me, as it
mhm,
will you, to
mhm,
look at yourself individually, as an individual, objectively, and say, okay, so this is who I am. This is what I have. This is my potential. This is the best way to me for me express it. This is what might get in the way. These are the best times. It's a tool.
it's a
It,
tool.
I, yeah, I don't go to lottery numbers or whatever, you know.
Right, I understand.
And I've had some of the most amazing people,
That's wonderful.
you know,
Mhm,
David Foster Wallace,
mhm.
Judith
Good.
Jamison, who we just lost.
Mm,
I mean, all kinds of people, and it's this is who I am. Tell me who you are.
right.
And to recognize that people J. California Cooper was a writer, and she said something 40 years ago, and I was in the room, and she talking about how can people do this? Why are people doing that? That's evil. If you just understand that people do bad things because in the end, they think they're going to get something good out of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
They think in the end, they're going to get some good.
And it's only through seeing consequence and understanding consequence that they learn that doesn't work.
Mm-mm,
Mm-mm.
mm-mm.
No. And I like what you said about, this is who I am. Who are you? That I
Yes.
see astrology as, one of the gifts, and I work with tarot and palmistry and runes and
Mm-hmm.
ogums and all that, well-stocked toolbox. But astrology gets you out of you and lets you look into another person from
Yes.
their reality. If you do it with humility, if you go like,
Yes.
really, and who are you?
Yes.
Not who I think you are, but who are
Yes.
you? You see
Yes.
it from their reality. It's not, but I like the fact that the chart, when we look at a chart, and coming back to this eclipse, this is the east and that's the west. It's the opposite as
Mm-hmm.
on a map because you're inside the map looking out. You step
Mm-hmm.
into somebody else, not looking down on them what's convenient for you, but what's it like to be them and step into that. And with humility, it can be such a doorway into understanding a soul. It's always up free will and grace. Every one of those planets
Absolutely.
has has 180 degrees of expression. That's why I wrote, and maybe here's my plug. That's why I wrote my book Starcodes, because
That's
it's
right.
focusing on how to use choice, how to look at the spectrum that each one presents so that you can move it towards the positive or the practical end and watch the shadow side of each aspect, each planet, each placement.
Yes.
Yeah. On that, we're just about done. Do you have any last nuggets that you want to share with our lovely public?
Just, I want everybody to love themselves. And that's just what came. Just love yourself. Love yourself. Even if you are challenged, and we all are challenged right now, just give yourself some love.
Wonderful.
Forgive yourself too.
And
And be
yes,
grateful.
that
Love, forgive yourself, be grateful.
that's
Be
beautiful.
grateful.
A great place to end. See you all next month.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Heather.